Got some bugs on the. And then, hey, that's a blue pen you have there.
Yeah, which is pretty close to what we're talking about.
Which I'm wearing a blue hat. I got my blue headphones. My shirt has blue on it. Oh God! Welcome everybody. This is the Glaziar Gambol podcast. Today we are going to be talking to you about Escarabajo Azul, which is Blue Beetle. It was very, very interesting. It is new. It is DCU, but not DCU, but is DCU.
Yep.
James Gunn, the DC purchased it from AT&T or whatever. It was going to go to HBO Max, straight to HBO Max, but ended up going to theaters. Currently sitting at like a $25 million opening weekend, which obviously doesn't sound great because it's really not for a lot of good movies. Does that mean it was good or bad? We're here to tell you that today. We're going to tell you what we thought. We're going to tell you we're going to be harsh. We're going to be fair. We're going to just be honest like we always are. Try to reduce spoilers as much as we can, but if we do have any big ones, we will try to give you a warning. First 10 minutes, we both talked about it right away. The first 10 minutes of the movie is rough.
Yeah,
it's hard to get through.
It's a little cheesy. Yep, cheesy.
Yeah.
Was some funny moments. It was cheesy a little bit. The acting was a little rough. Yeah,
the first 10 minutes felt like One Tree Hill. Felt like I was
the first 10 minutes was different, way different than the rest of the movie.
Absolutely.
100%.
Especially with opening on this like big orb and then going into it like it was going to be sinister.
Right.
And it got all like colorful and stuff. And then it was like, oh yeah, nope, not going to be sinister.
Yeah. And if you hate the color blue, avoid this movie because there's so much blue everywhere.
There is.
But it did introduce the characters, and I think that was the awkwardness, was introducing all the characters and the acting during those introductions. But once it started getting going, it really picked up, and it was the fun movie we thought it was going to be.
Outside those first 10 minutes, that's like, I don't even want to focus on that because genuinely it is something you kind of have to sit through. Those first, right. It doesn't really feel like story building. It doesn't bring you in. The opening credits have nice visuals, but outside of that, it's like, this kind of rough. So we're gonna ignore that first 10 minutes. I'm gonna talk about the rest of it because that was actually good. I actually had this thought multiple times while watching it, which was I tried to put myself into the mindset of like between 8 and 14-year-old me. How does the 8 to 14-year-old me think if I were to be sitting this and watching it? Because I feel like with the trailers that they released before the movie, with how they're advertising it, they were not advertising this movie for adults. They did not make this movie for adults.
Let's be honest though, Warner Brothers didn't really advertise this movie at all.
Yeah.
But like the main actor, it's like Zolo, I'm not gonna butcher the name, but he was the one basically doing the promotion. It's a DCU movie, but it's not the first movie of the DCU, which is kind of confusing. But no, they didn't really promote it at all. And with how much they promoted The Flash, I'm surprised they didn't do honestly anything for this because it probably would have had a more decent weekend. And from what the budget probably was, it probably would have been more profitable. It definitely would have been more profitable than The Flash. But
right. Well, and one thing we do want to confirm, James Gunn did confirm that Blue Beetle will be coming back in the future of the DCU. So
yeah,
he is going to be part of it. So like, even though like, it is kind of confusing, it's a DCU movie, but
you're right. It's not the first movie. One thing I like about, and James Gunn did say this about Superman Legacy, is that there are already heroes established. So you see throughout this DC movie, even from the trailer, we got Uncle Rudy mentions, which is George Lopez's character. He mentions that Batman is a fascist.
Yep.
And throughout this movie, you hear references to Superman and Flash. Like you hear,
including the cities that they live in.
Right. Yeah, Metropolis and then the inner city or something like that.
Yeah. Major city.
Yeah, something like that. But you hear references. All these characters, we've already seen the origins. We've seen a Superman origin how many times? We've seen a Batman origin 10 times the amount of Superman. So like we don't need that. And it's going to have these heroes already established. So that even more so makes Blue Beetle part of this world, the DCU going forward, is because those characters are already established. and you almost get an origin story for a character we've never seen before. So
there was two things you mentioned there that I definitely want to stop and talk about. One is so the cameos talking about other heroes.
Sure.
But the other one is George Lopez.
Right.
I think George Lopez was the best part of this movie.
100%.
I've always been I haven't really been a huge fan of him, especially like his stand-up. I think he's funny in his delivery. I do like he's been in voice acting a few times. He's had good roles. So I didn't have high expectations necessarily for his character. I was like, oh, he's going to be like that comedic relief character. But he was a comedic relief character that played a huge role. Right. And I laughed out loud multiple times, right, all from his lines.
And you can say that, like, and throughout the movie there was a lot of like cheesiness in a lot of the lines, and including George Lopez's lines. However, his character stayed true to that character the entire movie. Like it wasn't like a fake. It wasn't like a fake, like they made him cheesy or not fit in. Like he was that same character through the entire movie. So George Lopez's character, and then the main character Zolo, or I'm hoping I pronounced it right. I don't know, but those are probably the two high points. George Lopez's character, and then just Blue Beetle's Jaime Reyes's Blue Beetle together. I think some of his cheesiness, like they try to go back and forth between his seriousness and his cheesiness, and there was a kind of a void there. Like he's not a high schooler. He graduated college. Like he should be serious, but also like kind of cocky a little bit. You know what I mean? Like
I'm very glad you said that, because there was a couple times throughout this movie where I was like, I either wish he was 3 years older or 3 years younger.
Right.
For what they were trying to do with the character, that 22 was like the exact wrong age I would have put him at.
Right.
But you had, because you made it a love story, you had to make him old enough where it wasn't uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's like, okay, if I had the choice, I would have said he's probably 25, 26, just because with the way they portrayed him, he seemed too young for the age you gave us. But if you made him younger, it wouldn't work with the story. So it was a little off there. I'm very, very glad you said that, because I thought about that during the movie, and I was like, this. Sure, yeah.
I mean, we got similar views. But I think he can fit going. Like I would almost, and this is probably, Zachary Levi's comments are a separate. That's part of the DCEU, but he could fill the same role as what Shazam would fill going forward. Shazam / Captain Marvel, whatever you want the DC name of it, but. Like, there's no reason to have that same comedic relief if Blue Beetle's offering that same comedic relief.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah.
And I'm kind of sick of the Shazam stuff. Like, when we saw Black Adam, and we saw that, like, oh, they're going to go to the same history thing. Like, they come from the same area. They both say Shazam. It's just, they kind of went off with Shazam. They went off in a direction they shouldn't have. So, I'm fine if they completely replace Shazam with Blue Beetle in terms of comedic relief. He definitely, we have the video. I'll link it wherever here. We'll get a card in there. We talked about Blue Beetle a couple months ago, and we said this feels like it's going to be DC's Spider-Man. Spider-Man as a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, like, they would have made him younger. He would have been the exact. It was comedic. He was about family. He loses potentially somebody, and we were like, oh, it looks like he might have.
I mean, every great origin story has a significant loss. Right. So that kind of kicks them into gear.
This movie does have some it's predictable.
Yeah,
it is predictable. It has
moments,
but it is like Spider-Man. It is very similar. This DC can push Blue Beetle forward. I think as more people see it, more people are going to like it. So far, everybody that has seen it liked it. It's just not a lot of people have
fans.
Seen it.
Yeah, critics and fans, both of them have liked it. And if you do your judges based off a Rotten Tomatoes score, it is certified fresh. Yes. So if it's something you could take your outside of like language and some adult references, there's really not that. It's not gruesome at all. Nope. But outside of like language and some adult references, like you could take your kids to it too.
There's one gruesome scene near the end, and it's not super gruesome. You do see blood splatter,
Sure. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's probably the most gruesome kill in the whole movie. And other than that, I would probably say 10 years old to 10 and 11, probably want to make sure you are with your kids.
Yeah.
And anything older up to like 15, 16, you're going to enjoy the movie probably. Right. It's just you're not necessarily the target.
Right.
But I do think kids will enjoy it for sure. And I think people should take their younger kids because they'll enjoy it. But so aside from George Lopez being my favorite thing about the movie, I did also dislike the fact that his character just automatically knew how to run everything.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be my one negative of his is like, oh, give me 2 hours and I can get into the entire mainframe of this.
Right.
And I know how to
can
run
do
this.
an EMP for the like the greatest tech company in the area. I can EMP the entire building. So
they called him, what did they say? They called him Mexican Doc Brown.
Yeah, something like that.
And which and then that line made me laugh.
Yeah, he knew how to run all like possible like Blue Beetle tech,
which
even though like no one has
world destroying weapon,
alien technology
that you would think these people would have better security, better blocking. They didn't have people in the main entryway when they walked in.
Yeah,
so this movie had some like try not to think about it too hard moments.
Right, and it wasn't necessarily like James Gunn didn't really have his hand in this basket, I guess. It's like it was made prior to like the DCU announcement. They decided to run with it. They probably had enough time to scrap all DCEU references and kind of push forward a blank slate, I guess. And so that's probably all the changes that were made.
Go ahead, sorry.
I forgot where I was going. Go ahead.
Before I talk about the cameo, I had a theory, an idea. I don't know how accurate it is, but before I talk about it, because I do want to build some hype for it, it does involve a future DC product that has been announced that potentially may or may not come out. But when I saw it in the movie, I 100% thought about it. Before we talk about that, I want to talk about how good the CGI was.
Yeah, no, I thought it was sick. I almost wanted more. So you see it in the trailer where he gets the big like anime sword. Yeah. Like that was sick. Like everyone like loves the references with that. Like that's like the nerd in him. Like he's gone through college. He's been watching anime through college. He knows that sword. I almost wanted more weird things. So that's why I wanted to say that.
Looked straight out of Final Fantasy. Looked like it was just ripped from the game.
Yeah, sick. Like I mean, then he fought with it. Like I don't know, just a bunch of different like changing. And he had that where he changed his weapons throughout. And then I also don't have a problem with it being symbiotic.
Me neither.
A lot of people are going to be like, Venom did that, and it's like, well, alien technology, if it morphs onto a human, it's probably going to change their DNA. So.
And we also know the simple way of removing Venom from Eddie.
Yeah.
We don't have
fire and sound.
Spoiler alert. We don't have a simple way of removing the Blue Beetle.
Right. So, yeah, fire and sound really symbiotes don't like. But this is different because it's whatever. But, yeah, those are just 2 points I wanted to shout out.
So I think the CGI was great. Yeah, I would have been totally fine with more.
That was sweet.
A lot of people I've seen a lot of complaints about superhero movies on the internet because that's what people like to do.
The Flash CGI was god awful.
And gets a lot of crap.
Right.
This had better CGI than both. I saw a recent debate about we need more damaged superhero costumes. They shouldn't just be perfect all the time. We got that in this movie where his suit was never in perfect condition, really, except from the beginning.
Right.
And it kept those injuries throughout the movie.
Right. He would have to probably get not be suited up and let it recharge because it
has to
recharges. Right. Yeah. So
all these complaints that people have about superhero movies in general, we have that. Everybody has that superhero fatigue, seen it a lot, but a lot of those complaints were addressed. They did try to give fans what they want. They gave the better looking CGI. They gave you comedy that didn't try to feel campy. It felt a little childish, but it didn't feel campy.
Right.
And they gave you representation. They really
representation was great. Yeah, I've been people have been excited for this just because of the Hispanic representation
Yes,
and like
absolutely.
and
And they
so
should be. It
yeah,
was the amount of Spanish in this movie was incredible because there were
right,
times where they didn't even give you subtitles for it. So if you didn't know it, like
right,
luckily I work with a lot of people that speak Spanish, so I get to know most of those words.
yeah, I knew
But if
some of
you
them as
didn't,
well,
it's not
but
like it affects the story, but it's kind of nice to know, like, oh,
right,
mijo, son, like, oh, I
right,
get it, but
right.
it's not going to tell you that that's what it means. They don't tell you what pendejo means. You just have to figure it out. um, and so I really liked the inclusion. The only thing I didn't like about the Spanish speaking was Jaime, Blue Beetle himself, spoke Spanish once.
Right.
It made me
And
question if the actor actually
and
speaks Spanish.
but I mean, if I'm gonna counterpoint that,
Yeah,
he went to most likely an American,
right.
well, or an American college, right? Not necessarily in the Hispanic area of Panermo City. Is that Panermo City, I believe? Which is I believe is where they are. So like there's the whole community therein. He's not necessarily in that. He's probably been out in a different part of the world speaking English most of the time. But
Right. I do. It's just they
there
focused
could
on
have been
it being
more. Right.
family and
Right.
how he needs to be included. His lack of speaking, especially lack of responding in Spanish, made me disconnect him. I was like,
Sure. A little bit. Right.
he felt like he came from a different place than they did.
I would have
Which,
loved to see
yeah,
him really like let it out in Spanish when he was upset.
that would have been awesome. That would have been a
Yeah.
perfect use of it. They did it in there's a touching scene. That's the one time he speaks Spanish is during a
Right.
very touching scene. Other than that, he's the only one that speaks 99% English that's not
Sure.
white in this movie.
Yeah, sure. And he's I mean, I guess he is the main character you really want him to connect with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just
But
that would be my one complaint about the main
sure.
character would
Right.
if I wanted more Spanish from him.
Sure.
But let's get into we talked they mentioned Superman, they mentioned Metropolis, they
Batman.
mentioned Batman in
Mention
Gotham, and
Flash.
they mentioned Flash in Mega City, Metro City, Main
Yeah,
City, whatever.
yeah, maybe, yeah. Let me look it up
And
quick.
but there's a scene. I am going to talk a little bit about the
Central
movie.
City.
Thank
It's
you.
Central
Yes.
City. Yeah.
There is kind of a spoiler, but not really. I'm just going to explain something that's going on. When Blue Beetle first gets his attachment to Jaime, the Beetle is testing out the suit,
Right.
so going through the city at one point,
Sure.
flying through the city, and it's right before he crashes into a car. As I think he was testing the acceleration of the suit at the time.
Sure. Yep.
There is a seemingly random individual that they focus on for a solid like 45 seconds. I don't know why, but just stick with me. I know I'm obsessed.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this already, but yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I'm obsessed, and I
The
know I've mentioned
adult
it a lot.
reference in that adult references, I suppose, in that.
But there's
part,
a guy standing by himself on the sidewalk that is looking around because he hears a sound. He is a young black man with dreadlocks, and they're about shoulder length. I wanted to stop and rewind, which frustrated me that I wanted to stop and rewind because I couldn't remember what was on his shirt. I want to kind of go see it again just to see what was on his shirt. I'm assuming it has something to do with like his either the school he goes to or maybe that he's interested in electrical things.
Right.
Because when I saw that, I was stuck thinking about Static Shock, not even paying attention to the movie for 5 minutes. I want that to be Static Shock.
Yeah.
So
no,
bad.
I think that'd be a brilliant like. Okay, so you got me thinking now. You sparked me interest. So Blue Beetle, 22, probably right around the age of like what Kate Bishop is. I think Kate Bishop's like 24, something like that. And Kate Bishop is rumored to like lead a Young Avengers project. Okay, so you and I got Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, who's 22. You know that in the Brave and the Bold, which is going to be a Batman movie, that Robin is going to be a part of that movie. So now you kind of have this like younger, and if Static Shock, I know James Gunn has said in the past that some of these like kind of off the ball heroes that DC does own, like we're gonna try to get them their light of day, I guess. So you could have like a Blue Beetle and Static Shock and Robin. You could have that
And
kind
you
of
could definitely have so in the show for Static Shock, it's radiation that gives him his powers. It's a radiation explosion that gives a bunch of these young people different powers, both villains and heroes.
Right.
And you could definitely have maybe an energy explosion as he went by, alien technology and energy maybe fuse with him a little bit, and maybe
It could
that's
be a
him.
kind of like a weird thing, kind of like how mutants have different reactions to different stresses put on them. But
so I'm just saying, when that happened, I like tensed up and I wanted to say something to you in the theater, but I was like, I don't want to talk in the theater, but I was like getting all nervous. And I was like, I just swore it was him. I was like, that had to be. And they focused on, it was either a side character that got paid a little bit extra because he had some extra screen time, or they focused on him just be like, let's see if anybody pays attention.
Right.
Because I'm just gonna say that was Static Shock. That was him right there.
That'd be sweet. That'd be sweet.
Because
for sure.
They mentioned the other heroes. We know it's part of the universe. We know it's important. And the huge Static Shock fan in me goes, because we talked about this in the past, when James Gunn became the head of DC and mentioned that they were scrapping a lot of the ideas that were currently under development, they didn't mention Michael B. Jordan's Static Shock. They said they were considering it, that
some of these off the ball like kind of none of the big ones, I guess, in DC. They're thinking about bringing those to light, and I think that's a brilliant idea, just because you've seen Marvel do it with some of these no-name characters, and they're like great success too. Yes. So, I'm 100% for it. I'm for it for sure. And you could even have like maybe even his story, like he sees Blue Beetle, and you go directly like his point of view of that entire shot, like in a future thing. It may not even be his origin, but like it could just be he's like, oh, that's kind of what inspired me to like do good. Like I saw a superhero in Palermo City or whatever. So
yes, I would have loved that as one of the credit scenes, especially instead of the second credit scene, by the way. Yeah. But since we're talking about side characters now, we can move away from the superhero side of it. Nana, his mom, his sister, I thought were good additions. I thought they were kind of clunky storylines.
I agree, 100%. Yeah,
but I think that they were used in a way that was very predictable and
humorous,
and it was just good. Okay, each one was well done, well delivered, but your expectations shouldn't be, yes, I can't wait till they're in the next movie.
Yeah, you're right. I think clunky is a great word.
Yeah.
Outside of George Lopez's character,
he was incredible.
I think that, and maybe Cord Industries is the main
antagonist,
I guess. There's a bunch of different members of Cord Industries, and so I could see the younger Cord girl continue, and then Blue Beetle continue, and George Lopez's characters, Uncle Rudy. Those are the only three I think I would need to see again in a future project. But like that's I think they're the only ones who kind of make sense.
I think the sister will, which is why, spoiler alert, they gave her technology that she can use in the future, which attaches to the first credit scene in a little bit of a way. So I do think we will see that whole family again. You might not see Nana again, but you'll probably see the rest of the family. I think you'll for sure see the sister because she has technology. And I do think you'll see Rudy because, unironically, the best part of the movie was George Lopez for me. The other one, I just want to give a shout out because, again, this isn't just me, my own personal bias. Harvey Guillen. I know it wasn't a big role, but he played a very similar character that he plays in What We Do in the Shadows. I think he was just one of those side characters that did his role exactly how the director probably asked him to do it. And I think he did it well. And I love seeing people from smaller shows and smaller projects in major projects.
Right.
Spoiler alert, we won't be seeing Harvey again in the future, but it was nice to see him in this, and maybe gives him some screen time recognition to show people that he can be used on the big screen and it can still be successful, because I want him in more stuff. Otherwise, honestly, my overall, my favorite thing about the movie was George Lopez. My least favorite thing about the movie was most likely the
first 10 minutes.
The delivery of lines, and some of the direction choices. There's a few lines throughout the movie outside of the first 10 minutes, because Susan Sarandon is very good,
right?
But there are multiple times, including there's time when they're in like the helicopter, the delivery of lines, I would have been like, cut, let's try running that one
something
back.
Else,
let's
yeah, I think throughout the movie there's a little things that are like, I would have probably worded that a little different,
or I want to
different
word
tone
that with
here,
some different body language, so it doesn't feel like you're acting. It feels like you're actually saying it.
Yeah,
and that was the first 10 minutes. That's really what it is. I feel like I'm watching a soap opera where you're constantly aware of acting. You never really forget that you're watching a movie, which is my sign of a good movie.
Right.
Outside of the 10 minutes, you can get lost in it and truly get engrossed in it, but that first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
For sure. It felt like the director was like, how do we get through this to get to the good part?
Right.
Well, we could probably have him redeliver that line, because he's supposed to look stern and he instead looks like scared and forced. Can we have him redo that line? No, just get this over with. But yeah, other than that, it was, if I were to say good, great, fantastic, it was a solid, good movie.
Yeah. You got blurry.
I did get blurry. I don't know why. Hello?
You're back.
Better. Yes. Which is fine, because I don't have too much else to say about it. I think I've said my overall opinion. It felt like I think I mentioned it, Power Rangers, Spider-Man.
Right. Yep. And that's kind of what we said. I mean, we said it's going to be fun. And I think it is a fun movie.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's as serious as possibly like future DCU projects, because it's kind of like in the void of DCU and DCEU. It's kind of like in the void between them. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a fun movie, and I hope they find a path for him in the future. And I hope in like a James Gunn led project and him being part of the new world of DCU, I think just him being thrown into one of those projects will fix any issue I had in the delivery and stuff like that. So
my hope for the future of the DCU after seeing this movie is they move to a more adult decision, because it made me, if they're going to truly aim to target this 8 to 14-year-old age range, they're going to stay kind of irrelevant and unsuccessful. I think what made Marvel start to get more popular as it built up was, Iron Man is a prisoner of war.
Right.
You have somebody rip their face off in Captain America. There's just certain things that you have to make sure adults are watching.
Right.
And I hope that DC moves and like, yes, Blue Beetle's going to be young comedic relief. We're going to have young characters. Robin, have this like maybe this Justice League, Young Justice League, Teen Titans, whatever you want to say.
Supergirl, maybe like.
But so. I need some. I need Green Lantern making something like smashing somebody with a giant fist, and you see them get
squished. Superman punching someone, they should explode. There's if he's in a fight with aliens.
Mm-hmm.
They should still, and he's in any relative cast of the sun. They should explode. Superman has so much force that they should blow up. So
they need to bring adult things into
DC has always been known being the darker universe, and they have, in my opinion, they have to embrace that, but still build their world. Like,
this is targeted to young people because there's a fart joke.
Yeah.
And it's not just a quick one. It is a main point of that scene that occurs for like a minute and a half. So it's meant, this one I would 100% say is meant for kids, and I hope DC moves more adult,
young adults, I guess. Yeah, teens.
Yeah,
kids, teens, young adults. Yeah,
yeah. But I would say it's between like a 6 or 7 overall. It's not gonna say it's not a. I'm not gonna say.
I was gonna say a 6.5. Like I give it a 6.5, but I wouldn't give it a 7. But that's not bad, like by any means. Like
right, I wouldn't. 7's too high. 6, I think 6 or 6.5 is totally fair.
Yeah, I mean, if you put Blue Beetle in a thing where he's not killing people and he's fighting aliens and stuff, you almost get a way better movie. Mm-hmm. I because he can actually he can kill the aliens and he can show the brutality, because his suit could get brutal.
It could, yeah. It's the most overpowered ability in all superpowers in any universe, in my opinion, is projection, where anything you can think of can come to life.
Right.
There's nothing.
It's kind of contained to a suit.
Right.
But so it can't be I can't make a giant.
So he's got power.
Yeah, he's strong,
and he could, if he wanted to, could make an energy-based chainsaw that rips somebody in half if you wanted. They're not going to, because it's a kid thing. But
if it was aliens,
you could easily just have him go Gears of War and just.
Oh yeah.
100%.
That'd be sick. He could even reference Gears of War. He
might as well.
Bunch of references would be sick.
And you get advertisement there, which there was a lot of advertising in this movie. Yeah. If you're like me and you pay attention to ads when they pop up, I mean, Vaseline, Toyota, you've got some pretty strong. Look at my ads in this movie. I liked it though. I thought it was good. I would see it again, maybe in theaters, probably not.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to hear this from other people, but you're going to hear the Spider-Man stuff, and I really hope you hear the Static Shock stuff, because the more hype we build for Static Shock, the more we can guarantee it comes through.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. If you have seen it, let us know what you think. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Hopefully this didn't give you too many spoilers or anything like that. We tried to warn in each one, but yeah, I liked it. I think this is a great start to what should be a good, positive future for DCU.
And I hope in Superman Legacy, and he's already kind of established himself as a human in society. I think James Gunn said that, as a human in society. So I hope there's because Superman works at a news outlet, right? It's a news place. So I hope they straight up reference something that happened in Panorama City, and there's I hope that that'd be sick if they just a small little ad you see on a newspaper panel in the background, Bugman in Florida, you know what I mean? Just something
big. Blue bug.
Yeah.
Blue bug cuts bus in half.
Right.
Which is not a spoiler because it was in the trailer and everything.
Yeah. So I mean, that'd be sick. I'd love to, because then it's he exists in the world. You create the continuity that James Gunn has been that is the thing missing in all of the old projects. You build that, and it's just a little cast the line out. It's connected somehow. So I hope that is what happens.
There's only one more major DC movie coming out this year, and I think this movie will be better than that movie.
Yeah. I don't think, if you think The Flash did horrible at the box office, I don't think it makes half of that.
You don't think Aquaman makes half as much?
No, because it was what, maybe mid 200s is what Flash did. I don't think it makes half of that, because no one is a part of the DCU anymore. No one cares.
It doesn't matter to the continuity of anything in the prior projects or future projects. It has actors in it that people don't want to see, and it has been delayed. It's been a product of the delays for so long that a lot of people forget that this movie is a sequel, coming out. The Marvels is going to outweigh it so much that should just take away from it too.
Right. And the fact that Jason Momoa probably is going to be moving on to a new character in the DCU.
Another card right here. We'll put that there. We talked about that already as well.
What, Lobo?
Lobo, yeah.
Yeah. So
we did a casting DC characters and we talked about that. So
check that out. Check that out right up here.
Check that out, please.
I don't know where we're gonna put it.
I think it always pops in the top. One of these.
I'll be poking over there. So,
but for those of you that stuck around to this point, thank you. Not just click those cards. Please share the videos, like, comment, subscribe. People have been liking the shorts, so we're obviously going to keep those coming out. And yeah, go see Blue Beetle if you haven't seen it. And if you don't feel like seeing it in theaters, you're gonna like it. You're
still support it because it's just to get Static Shock, maybe. Just support us, support Blue Beetle, support the DCU. They're trying, and these are all heroes that we love. So it's gonna take a group effort for everything.
Yeah. Thank you all. You all look great today. GG.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. Have no regrets, yeah, I'm tired of my chest.